There is still a poor level of
Be the first to know from the north, south, east, west, and around Africa. We break the news.
One Nigeria.
Now you can catch all the actions live as the news breaks. We are Core TV News,
welcome to Core
a
TV.
24-hour news station.
It's a rainy day here in Lagos, and one of such days like this, you just want to stay back at home and sleep. So when some of us woke up and came in the rain to work, it shows a little bit of passion, and that's why you shouldn't do a job you're not passionate about. I mean, if you plan to get a job today or some days after now, you should do something you truly love, and job for you might just turn out to be fun. I'm Nifemi Oguntoye. Welcome to Core Digest, and this is Thursday edition as we begin to cast our mind back to a continuation of what we had yesterday, talking about the Adamawa impeachment. The big question is, Nasarawa the next stop? And if all the claims by the opposition is true, are we hoping or looking forward to see such happen in states like Edo, Rivers, and other states presently under the All Progressives Congress? I'm joined this morning by Chijioke Eze. He's a public affairs analyst and no doubt a veteran social commentator. Good morning, Chijioke.
Good morning.
How are you today?
Very good, very good.
All right, let's start from the scratch. Nyako's removal makes it the 6th time we will have a governor impeached in the country since 1999.
Yeah.
We've had cases like that in Plateau, in Oyo, in Bayelsa, AKT, as well as Anambra State.
Correct.
What do you think all of this portend for the quality of the democracy that we run in Nigeria? If you bear in mind that the Supreme Court overruled the lawmakers' decision in 3 of the 6 states.
Correct. Well, there is a general feeling that, oh no, the lawmakers are overstressing or overusing the impeachment clause in the Constitution. However, you can't exactly say that there can be enough of the right thing to do. If a governor has stepped out of line, beyond reproach, then if you have to effect an impeachment, if that's the only way to go, then you should go. I suppose impeachment isn't the first thing that lawmakers go for. Oftentimes, they try to reach the governor, maybe the Speaker of the House, some key members of the House try to get across to the governor. Sometimes even the party members intervene from maybe the national body to say, hey, your excesses are unbecoming, cut down or manage your home, things like that. And for Nyako's case, on several occasions, they had tried to serve him. In fact, they had tried to impeach him severally before now. And they also, he in quotes, I would say in quotes, eluded the serving of the notice, and he had to be found elsewhere. Essentially, his jet was grounded so that he could be served the notice of impeachment. Now, if you look at that itself, how do you balance it? Do you say, oh no, he had it coming, and that's why he even tried to, dodge it? Or maybe he practically undermined the House by saying, oh, you guys can't do anything to me, I'm the governor, things like that. You can't rule out impunity on the part of serving governors. Some governors take it to be their personal, office, as if they are the ones, it's a business they built themselves. So sometimes the House may take it as a last resort. Some other times they just, maybe having tried so many times and they feel, you know what, this guy isn't going to change. The situation won't change if we don't chuck him out. And then they come together and do that. It's just that simple.
Some have questioned the quality of honorables that we have at the floor of the House, because
Correct.
Oftentimes when we see this impeachment happen, it happens on political basis. I mean, Nyako was first served an impeachment notice in 2008, and then the same things why they wanted him out in 2008 is the same reasons, one of those reasons why he was removed now in 2014. And this is happening after he left the PDP for the APC.
Correct. I'll say this. You must understand how relationships work. In power, you must have good relationships with certain people or certain quarters. I'll give you a small example. Something similar happened in Delta States where the speaker avoided impeachment and then rather he resigned his position. You know, you must understand who you're dealing with and how you're dealing with the person. It's not just because when he left PDP, he's left PDP for quite some time. So if it was a direct attack to say, hey, we're going to punish you for the sins you've committed. But he had the time to build new relationships with these guys, irrespective of the party. So why would his friends, in quotes, because they were friends when they were all in PDP, why would his friends turn around at this
You
time?
mean River State?
No, I'm talking Nyako.
Okay,
Because
okay.
he was
okay.
in PDP. The members of the House are also PDP members. So let's just say that they were all friends at the time. Why would his so-called friends desert him at this time? Why would they turn against him? Did he lose relationship? He's not the only one who turned. Why hasn't Amechi been impeached? What's his name? Rochas Okorocha in Imo State went from PPA. Why hasn't he been impeached? You know, so, and these are people in very unpopular situations, as it were. Now, why haven't they been impeached? Why is it in Nyako? So, on one end, you can look at it as a target from PDP. On the other end, you can also look at it as a loss of relationships.
Okay.
He didn't get chucked out in 2008. Why? But then, Joshua Darie was a PDP governor, and he was impeached, even though he was overturned. Rashid Ladoja was a PDP governor. He was impeached, and it was PDP at the central government. So it's on one end, you want to look at it like a political plot, so to speak, but on the other end, there are tenets that have shown that, hey, it's not just because it's PDP or because you crossed over. If you do not manage your affairs the way you should, things like this would happen. Let me give you one very funny saga of impeachment. Chuba Kadigo, Adolphus Wabara, and what's his name, eventually landed on Ayim Pius Ayim. One dispensation, one PDP, 3 impeachments. The first guy would be Evan Ewerem, 3 Senate presidents. Very funny situation, all PDP. So it's not as if, oh, it's because you're in PDP, then everything goes. Or when you're not in PDP, then you're in trouble.
But some would say that it's actually, it's still being political, possibly some intra-politics, intra-party politics.
Yes, you can't rule out intra-party politics. I'll give you a small example. Say I'm disgruntled. When Atiku was disgruntled, he left the PDP. And then he realized that his chances were brighter in the PDP he's angry with. And then he went back, So there are people who feel, oh, you know what, this isn't working for me. But instead of, getting out of this party and then starting all over from the bottom of the ladder, why don't I just work my way within the system? So there is the displeasure. Let's not forget that Nyako is also a very dogged person. He's stubborn, and his stubbornness may also have offended people within the PDP, and they felt, you know what, we made you. You were a retired military man doing very fine, but we brought you here, and we thought you could serve us, and your interests are no longer in line with our interests, so you have to go. That's on one end. But the sins, the offenses he committed in 2008 were valid enough for him to be impeached. He survived the impeachment. How did he survive it? How come the same set of guys, but he didn't survive it now? Why so? So I don't want to look at it from one end alone that it's political. However we look at it, it's political. But whether it is a direct plot by the PDP, that's not how I want to look at it completely, because they can't also rule out the fact that these are offenses. And these are not offenses that have a validity period. You say after this time, then they are no longer offenses. No, they were offenses, they are offenses. They will always be offenses whenever they are committed. So if it's taking this long to chuck him out, well, it's up to the people who have the power to take him out. And why they didn't take him then and are doing it now, it's up to them to answer.
Sure, there were offenses, but some would tell you that these are offenses that any governor in Nigeria could have fallen for.
Correct.
As at this time. For instance, we have 6 governors being impeached since 1999. The Supreme Court overturned 3. And then added to what happened in Ekiti, Fayose was impeached, and then it came back to contest.
Correct.
And he was voted for overwhelmingly. Some have
Yes.
questioned the legality that surrounds the nature of impeachment in Nigeria.
You must understand that emotions play a big role in matters like this. That I'm angry with you today doesn't mean I'll be angry tomorrow. So, at the that's why I talked about relationships, political, affiliations. Who are your friends? Who are your spine? People who constitute your spine, people you can run to talk to the people who manage your image, so to speak. All of those things put together, they count a lot. Fayose rather was kicked out and booed, and then he went on a rampage against Obasanjo at the time. But here we are in the same PDP. Now look at it, it's very funny. Fayose never left the PDP. He had his war, his battles within PDP, fought his way back into the limelight and found his way back to the office.
But nobody is talking about the allegations that he was impeached for.
Now, it's very funny. A lot of things are modeled under gross misconduct. What may be constituted as gross misconduct on the floor of the House may not necessarily be a crime outside. So there might not be offenses that you can be arrested for. I'll give you an example. Why did Jonathan change the service chiefs? Because people like Festus Keyamo kept insisting that you cannot appoint people without submitting them to the House for scrutiny and for, at least, even if it's just ceremonially, they have to come here. They have to know that these are the people I am responsible to, and I am also responsible for, because my job here is security. So it's not something the president should ride over the houses, that's the upper and the lower houses, and then appoint these guys and send them straight to work. So after a long drawn battle, he succumbed, and what did he do? He changed them. That's misconduct. A continuous action of such, when you repeat it over time, it becomes gross misconduct. But if you get impeached over matters like that, nobody's going to arrest you for it.
But then let's look at the drama that happened in Adamawa. 1 minute, the acting chief judge is saying that you cannot impeach someone without serving such a notice of impeachment.
Correct.
And you have to do it, you have to hand it over to that person in person.
Correct.
And then the next minute, the acting judge is saying, well, there's another way out. We have to constitute a 7-man investigative panel. Look at how people change overnight, and the people are questioning that most of these impeachment processes do not follow the rule of law.
The rule of law here is often determined by the people. The truth is, there is a constitution, that's the one that doesn't shake. But the rule of law is oftentimes user-specific, so to speak, because if something is an offense in one area and is not an offense in another area, the rule of law cannot exactly apply. It's what the people agree that holds. Now, in the case of what the Attorney General had said, that you have to serve the impeachment notice, if my understanding is correct, that's why his jet was grounded in Abuja and he had to be served. Where I think they are dancing around that subject now is the case of the Amakura in Nasarawa, where they're using the media to inform him. Repeating it 100 times over using the media is not service. You're notifying the person of an intention to serve, but you haven't served. And until you serve, it can't exactly hold sway. I would believe that the job of the 7-man panel was to investigate the allegations of the House against the governor, and it is the report that indicted the governor. What may be very funny there is to say the report exonerated the deputy governor and indicted the governor. However, as of yesterday, the governor, in quotes, had resigned. But reports this morning, the deputy governor, rather, had resigned and his letter of resignation was read. But then the deputy governor this morning, from the news I had read and listened to on my way here, he was saying that his resignation was obtained by fraud. Now, how was it obtained? That's a very funny thing. The supposed guardian of the Constitution, of the rule of law in that state, is saying, this is what was done, this is my advice, you followed it, you've done it, but in this case, it might waver. Do you understand? That's in another state, sorry, that's in Nasarawa. where they're trying to use a public medium to announce it. It's very funny, and that's why, yes, on one end, it's also political. But look at it this way. I want to focus primarily on Nyako before we go elsewhere. Nyako could have easily survived this. There were several opportunities for him to. The panel invited him and invited the deputy, both of whom didn't show up. That was an opportunity.
Do you think things could have changed if they showed up? I think
things could have changed. But what put the nail to the coffin was when he made a declaration that that panel was illegal. And if he had attended it, then he would have endorsed an illegality. The panel didn't fall down from the sky. People with constitutional powers to constitute a panel did constitute it. And you know to what extent, you know, the damage can be to you, to your person, to your office. At the very least, what's advised in conditions like this is, even if you wouldn't show up, you either send a representative, a lawyer, a junior officer to you, you know, however it is, manage something from the background and then be seen to be doing something at the foreground, not to completely jettison the system and even go out to try to ridicule it. Let's not forget that at the time, he was the governor. So in a sense, he was also ridiculing his own office because he's the chief executive of the state.
But then with this old drama, wouldn't you agree that power passed hands in some quarters? For instance, the APC is alleging that members of the Adamawa State House of Assembly were induced with $300,000. And that might not be far from what transpired late last year. The House, you know, said all hail Nyako. And then they passed a vote of confidence on him that he's doing well. And then a few months down the line, the story changed.
It's very funny. When he was moving to APC, he went with a flock of people. And all of a sudden, these guys turned around and went back home. Home would be where they were coming from, not exactly, you know, their homes in principle. Now, what changed at that time? Fortunately, I would say fortunately, because not everything is glaring, and I honestly wish the APC had evidence, because if you at the Ekiti election, when they said, oh, you were using bags of rice and food for campaigning, and it was more like bribing the people, there were evidences to show. If there was such a thing, then it would hold more water. It would be easier to fight them to say, hey, this is not it. It will be easier for the courts to overturn that decision. But they followed what was said to be due process. They served the notice, they investigated, found him guilty. Now, he got a standing ovation late last year, a vote of confidence. How many of the people, where were they? Were they PDP and APC at the time? Or were they all PDP, or were they all APC? What was it on ground at the time? And this is 2015, knocking on our door right now. Those people at that time, what was their foresight? What did they see that could come to them? What was their stake? What could come to them from that stake? At this time, when the governor has gone to another party, they are in another party, what's in it for them? I saved this guy 8 years ago. I've given him a vote of confidence. He's gone supposedly to the other camp. What are my chances here? Am I going to maintain this seat next, you know, at the next dispensation? What are my options? So if I keep him here, knowing all of these things, do I stand a great chance? There's a popular saying that there is no permanent enemy or friend in politics, just permanent interest. So I'm here to protect my interests and the interests of the people I represent. So what are my chances? If he's unbending at this point, at the time I need him, or I need his face on my posters, or I need his relationships, would I be able to leverage that? So why don't I just do the right thing, so to speak, for impeach him for all of his sins, and let's try another hand.
Is it not disturbing that when we talk about impeachment in Nigeria, not much is actually being talked about the gross misconduct?
Exactly.
You know, let's look at the list of these governors: Joshua Dare of Plateau, Rashidi Ladoja, DSP Alamisiaga. Of course, we heard about what happened, what transpired outside Nigeria.
Outside
The
Nigeria,
former
of
Delta
course.
State governor, too, who was exonerated in Nigeria, got
Yes.
arrested and prosecuted
And
outside
jailed.
Nigeria. None of those people are in jail, or none of them, as we speak now, has been prosecuted for any wrongdoing. Unlike in developed nations where if you get impeached, you're not likely going to run for a political office. Not again.
Yes, but you know, I hate to say this, and that's because I hate the negative use of the Nigerian factor. But truth is the negative part of the Nigerian factor. I give you a small example. Alamisia escaped from the UK dressed as a woman. He came back home and got pardoned. I don't know how ridiculous that would be in the eyes of the Western world or people with much or more developed democracies. It's very funny. I still don't know how it sits well in my system, but the truth is, the president came out and made a string of excuses as to why. And at the time this pardon came, we had the amnesty program going on. Was he instrumental to peace in the South-South? I don't know. Was it part of the conditions of men? I don't know. Now, that's for Alamisia. However, what's on ground, what's on paper is disturbingly indicting. He should be in jail. He shouldn't get the pardon, but he's got the pardon. He's not in jail.
Would you say we have a government that celebrates corruption in Nigeria?
I wouldn't say so.
So what's responsible for
I wouldn't say we celebrate corruption, but I would admit that there is widespread, deep-rooted corruption in the system. I would admit that. But to say we celebrate it might be an overkill of the situation.
Everything seemed to rise and fall on the houses of assembly. What exactly is the relationship that should exist between the executive and the legislatures? For instance, Adamawa is one of the 3 states under the, what's it called now, the emergency rule, fighting terrorism.
Correct.
And then over time you see this, you see the executive and the lawmakers at loggerheads. What exactly should be the kind of relationship that we should see between these 2 arms of government?
Well, it depends on what the issue is and why they're, having this disagreement. It should be a no love, no hate relationship. It should be topical. It should be dispassionate. It should be about what's on ground. When Obama wanted to push the debt ceiling, John Boehner, the Speaker of the House, or the lower house, was vehemently against it, and he turned the House over because there the Republicans had an upper hand. And he stalled it. He stalled it until the deadline was passed, because the Republicans felt he was in excess, and then he didn't, his policies and his tactics and strategies weren't working for the American economy. But then, on the war on terror, there is no argument between the houses. Oh, in fact, the Republicans are saying the Senate isn't acting fast enough. People are dying in Syria. What's America doing, So that's how it should be. When there are topical issues, there are topical national issues, especially where lives are at stake. I would expect a seamless relationship to say, hey, these Chibok girls are missing. We need to do something. There should be no blockades, no loggerheads. They should come together, figure out how to fix the problem and fix it. But on matters like budget, matters like polity, things like, say, salaries and wages, there naturally will be disagreements, because, say, I am from an oil-producing state, and you're not from the oil-producing state. So I have better options to, in quotes, wealth, resources, because I am from an oil-producing state, but you're not from there. So if I clamor for reduction in salaries and wages, you might not take it lightly because you know that outside this point, you have nothing. So things like salaries and wages, where it affects the lawmakers directly, yes, you will have loggerheads. But where it's a function of a national unity or national security issues, I expect that there shouldn't be any loggerheads. They should work together to ensure, that national delivery of service.
So when we come back, we'll be talking about how much good job the lawmakers have done over the years in our political history in Nigeria. And you recall that APC is already accusing the federal government and the People's Democratic Party of getting set to sack more governors. As a matter of fact, 5 more governors on sack list. Inside the APC, of course, the PDP has already dismissed the claim. Many are also saying the moment you write a letter to the president, then you are on your way out. Sanusi wrote one, Iyako wrote one, and then many are asking if there will ever be another letter written against Mr. President in Nigeria. We'll take a short break now, and after the news, we'll be back with more. And I'll stay here with Chijioke Eze. Don't go away.
You can now watch Core TV News live from anywhere in the world on our website www.coretvnews.com. Click on Live TV on our website and watch us live.
And welcome to Core TV Primetime Days.
To follow us on Twitter, click on Twitter icon on our website. On Facebook, click on the Facebook and YouTube to see all our previous news production. You can also watch us live on YouTube. Click Core TV, leave a space, then News. Core TV News, a 24-hour news station.